Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I hope everybody's safe and you didn't have a lot of damage from the winds last night. Just be mindful because we do hear we're going to have some wind, storms, and a little bit of weather until tomorrow. So just keep an eye on that. So as we get closer to Christmas, we'll start thinking about, kids and children around us, etc. So today we have with us Dr. Terry Crafts, who is the CEO of Embrace Washington. And we're going to talk a little bit about foster care because we cannot forget the children that perhaps are in transition. Actually, when you look at it in the U.S., and the numbers vary, but there's up to 400,000 children that may be going through different stages of foster care. And I don't like to use the word system, but it is a system, but transition through foster care. So thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely, happy to be here.
And we're going to congratulate Dr. Crafts because she completed her PhD in leadership and innovation at Purdue University. So congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you, yeah.
Officially today, we're congratulating you. So tell us a little bit about Embrace Washington and what is the role of Embrace Washington in the community?
So Embrace Washington serves children in foster care in 13 counties in eastern Washington.
Okay.
So we serve about 2,000 children a year. And that, when you say resources, it's kind of a really broad blanket statement, but really we're here for the child. So it's about providing safety, stability for them, allowing them to have meaningful childhood experiences. So all the way from the time that they enter care, in a lot of states, children are given garbage bags to gather up their belongings,
Okay.
which I'm sure you can understand the psychological impact that has on a child. We make sure that doesn't happen here in eastern Washington. We provide duffel bags that are collapsible and rolling, so they can be handled by just about any kiddo, that are filled lovingly with stuff from our volunteers. We also provide beds. So one of our biggest programs is Sleep Safe.
Okay.
And that is, the intent behind that program is to remove barriers to placement and keep siblings together. So sibling groups will be split up if there is not enough beds in the home. We make sure that doesn't happen, and we will provide all of the beds and bedding for the kids so that they can stay together and not be re-traumatized in what is a very difficult time for them. We also provide educational tutoring to try to make sure that these kids get the one-on-one academic support they need so that they have a chance at graduating high school. And then we have some other really great programs like HALO, which provides for the medical needs of the child. A lot of these kids have really complex medical cases, and there is significant gaps in coverage, and they need support, and we step in to try to assist them there. And we also have one of my favorite programs, which is the WISH program. And that's about creating positive childhood experiences. So if a child wants to learn to swim or play a musical instrument or participate in sports, we make sure that that is not a barrier for them. And they're able to have those just average childhood experiences that can be so impactful.
Wow. So a couple of things that I think are very
Yeah.
important. First of all, I think you've dispelled one of the myths. Is a child walking around with a trash bag full of stuff. That is not the case, and that should
Not in
never
our
be
counties,
the case.
yeah.
And I'm glad to hear you mention that we're trying to keep siblings together,
Yes,
and that shouldn't be an obstacle because that is a traumatic event.
it is,
And you
yeah.
separate them. And a lot of the programs, I'm assuming if we go to your website, we're going to be able to see a little bit more about each one of those that you just mentioned.
Absolutely, yeah.
So at the end, you mentioned gaps. Let's talk about a little bit about gaps in social and medical services, the families and the children that you serve. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, all of these kids, they're on state medical. So,
Okay.
to be a child in care, you're considered a ward of the state, right? You have a social worker attached to you, which means that you're on state insurance coverage. And as we all know, there's budget deficits, and insurances just don't have the ability to pay for what is necessary for these kids. A lot of children in foster care, they tend to outpace their peers pretty significantly in terms of the complexity of their medical needs, and that really really is just a fact of their lived experiences. They may have been born drug exposed or had a lot of abuse and neglect and trauma and have very significant medical needs that just can't be met. And it's everything from, a perfect example is maybe a state can come in and pay for a wheelchair for a child, but they can't pay for a wheelchair ramp to get that child in and out of the house. We can pay for that. We also had a 3-year-old little girl who, she has severe brain injury. She has a feeding tube. She was in doctor appointments, physical therapy, everything, 5 days a week. And she could not be in a regular car seat because when she was sat upright, it occluded her airway and she would start choking. And so we had to order a specialized car seat that allows her to recline so that she could safely be transported to these types of doctor appointments. So it's really just about taking each individual case and kind of looking at what is the needs of this child and how can we best support them.
Wow. So a couple of things that you mentioned that I want to go back to. You mentioned that some of these children may have complex medical issues because of their background and the situation, which you're addressing to the best of our ability. But we do know that there may be some long-term issues, complications. How do we deal with that? What do we do about that potential long-term?
Well, the long-term outcomes for children in foster care are very bleak, unfortunately. So they often call it the foster care to prison pipeline is one example. So, for example, did you know that 60% of men who are in federal U.S. prisons are former foster kids? The girls tend to be the highest demographic of sexually trafficked victims in the U.S. The high school graduation rates are really poor. It's about 50% of the kids graduate high school. And when you compare that to the average population, which is well above in the 80s, you can just see that the outcomes for these kids aren't great. And you think about the transitory nature of foster care, getting moved around, jumping schools, having these kind of medical issues, having the trauma that they have to deal with. That's why we come in to support them. That's why we do the educational tutoring, to kind of just give these kids a chance to thrive. Positive childhood experiences are deeply impactful for these kids because it's been proven time and time again to negate a lot of these negative childhood experiences and trauma that they have lived through. So, it's about giving them all the resources and just really stability more than anything else, feeling like they have everything that the average child needs and deserves to give them just this chance, this opportunity to grow and thrive.
Well, I think the first thing that comes to mind is I use the word bleak, and the first time I heard you today use a word that was less than positive. But I think as a community we can do better. So we'll talk about that in a second. But let's go back for a moment and of all of the services to try to prevent that long-term impact. Anything that you believe is really, really successful and perhaps has succeeded with one of these children or many, can you share with us?
So I have a really great story. So, a lot of our requests come in and it's an emergent need. So, for example, a lot of people don't know that we do not accept state or federal funding. All of the funding from our organization comes from individual donors, which we're so grateful for, and grants that I write. And that is very intentional because when there is a need, it is emergent in a lot of cases. So we had a 6-year-old little boy who came into care at 3 o'clock on a Friday, and there was a home to take him, but you cannot place a child in a home if there's not a bed. And the state said, we have to make a bed happen in the next 2.5 hours, or this child will have to sleep in the DCYF offices because all of the group facilities are currently full. Wow. So you think of this child who's just been pulled into, a really scary situation. And, we were able to make that happen. We were able to get this bed and this bedding to this child so that he didn't have to sleep in an office, over the weekend. And that child, since went into school, we found out that, he has some academic delays and needed a lot of help. So we were able to immediately align him with one-on-one educational tutoring, and he's now thriving. And, when you talk about long-term stability, it is so much more than comfort. It's about feeling like people care about them. It's about feeling like they have the resources that are available to them. I truly believe a lot of our academic tutoring, we have some incredible partners. I'd like to shout out Mathnasium here locally. We partner with Whitworth University Literacy Center. They're just incredible. And helping these kids graduate high school, I think, is one of the most greatest impacts. I mean, when we look around at Spokane as a community today, I think a lot of the issues that we see, whether it's domestic violence, drug use, homelessness, a lot of those adults are children who have aged out of foster care. And that is the outcome for them if we don't provide them the resources. And so, as adults, we kind of sit around and we throw up our hands and say, oh my gosh, like how can we help these people? And I fundamentally believe in my core that it's about being proactive instead of reactive. Let's address it when they're kids and we have a chance to provide them what they need to change that outcome instead of addressing it by filling our jails and creating more shelters and that sort of a thing. So I really think that that's the long-term impact of what we do.
Great. So upstream, be proactive. I mean, that's true of any human being.
Yes.
Right? Our formative years are critical in determining what we're going to do when we're older. So they're no different. These are kids, like any other kids. So tell me, what can we do in the community to be helpful? What can we help you with?
Well, we do so much. Obviously, donations, I mean, just as any nonprofit, like we love donations, but, volunteer with us. We just had an event last weekend. So in addition to all of our basic programs, we do positive childhood events. So we provided 600 children Christmas last weekend.
Oh, wow.
And so that requires a big lift of people coming and volunteering, because every child gets a gift and a stuffy and a book and gets to engage with local mascots. And it's just a really fun, incredible childhood experience for them. So we have events throughout the year that we need volunteers to come. But I mean, really, truly, I think that one of the biggest things you can do without it taking a lot of time or costing money is just learn more and spread your knowledge. I think there's a lot of misnomers about what foster care is, that the state provides all these resources the kids need, or that the families are somehow making money off these kids when they take them in, and that is absolutely not true. And so I think just being able to spread a little bit of knowledge out there about like how we can make a difference in the lives of a child, one child at a time, and the long-term ripple effects that has on our community as a whole, I think that's really something that can be very impactful.
So we can send people, and I think we flash your website as we've been speaking. Everybody should go there, take a look.
Absolutely.
And that will identify the programs and some of the opportunities that we have. You mentioned something that I think a lot of people may not realize. Use the term age out of the system.
Yes.
What does that mean?
So typically children, when they turn 18, they're aged out of foster care. Now, there is a little bit of leeway. They have another program called extended foster care, which goes into the early 20s. But once a child has hit 18, just like any other kid, they're considered an adult, right? So if they're in a group facility, or, if they were having, state medical coverage or any of those sort of things, a lot of those resources come to an end, essentially. And so for kids that have not found any kind of permanency in their placement, that's where it comes into children who become homeless very rapidly, and that sort of a thing. So that's why we work with children aged 0 to 18. Once they age out, there is another organization here locally that kind of tries to help to assist, but we're only doing what a small nonprofit can, so we really need community support. And again, just spreading the word about what we do is so impactful.
Well, thank you. And I want to leave us as we go. We're all thinking about holidays and Christmas and whatever, and we're going to think about New Year's resolutions. So I want all of us to make a resolution. Let's go to a website, check it out. If there's something you can do, it doesn't have to be monetary, it could just be share the information with others, learn more, so we can really think about these kids as kids that happen to be transitioning through a time in their lives when they really need a lot of help.
They do.
And the good news is we certainly can help, and all of your programs seem to have a great outcome. We're going to say thank you again to Terry for coming here today, for joining us, people listening to us. Like I said, New Year's resolution, we're all going to go and check out the website. Well, I'm lying, I already did, but anyway, I will do it again. I spent a little bit more time because obviously I wanted to learn more, just so I could have this conversation with you. And it's very well laid out, by the way, so it won't take you more than a few minutes to figure out where you can be helpful. So with that, we're going to say thank you again, congratulations. Thank you for helping those 2,000 children. And let's see, Spokane, what we can do so these 2,000 kids can do better in 2026. Stay safe, stay well, and we'll see you again next week. Thank you.
Thank you.